Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Game Over Ottawa. Maude and Damian here once again, covering another Ottawa Senators loss as they fall 5-2 to the Los Angeles Kings. How are you doing tonight, Damian?
I'm not like gonna cry over this game. But it would be great to have this team win 4 or 5 games in a row because of the ground that they've lost, and it wasn't their worst night tonight, I don't think. But it still stings because every loss just kind of gets worse and worse, and the dominoes keep falling in Sensland.
Yeah, it's you can't let your team dig themselves a big hole, and they already did. So to get themselves out of a big hole, they need to actually string together some wins, and the Sens seem absolutely incapable of stringing together more than 2 wins at a time, as this would have been 3 wins in a row if they were able to pull it off tonight. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they've won 3 in a row all year, eh? It's always been just two and then followed up with a loss, right?
Yeah, that's weird. Like, it's not like a 6 game win streak. They were saying on the broadcast tonight too. I think LA was heading into they were heading with the 2 game win streak as well, and they were saying both teams haven't won 2 games in a row
Oh
over
wow.
the entire
So
season.
so
So
even LA, who can't win 3 in a row either, they've still got a way better record than us, which is that's crazy actually.
yep, yep, the Sens gonna Sens, right?
Yeah, oh my god. But it felt like it was going to be another scheduled loss, as you sometimes say here tonight. As I've been checking this a lot lately, but with all the Sens road games, I'm looking up their record when they go to these cities, and of course, the Sens only have 5 wins in Los Angeles in their history. So a 5-14-4 record is now 5-15-4. Just bad vibes with so many of these Western Conference arenas that they have to play, and then that's something that they've got to get better at over time, because in the new NHL you play every team twice, and if you're just giving up like automatic losses to some of these teams on the road in the West especially, you're never going to be able to make the playoffs that way.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be looking at because I swear LA has a good road record. So let me check right here. LA, actually, never mind. I thought they were a little bit different. But in the past they were like really good on the road, I believe.
Mhm.
I honestly like I don't have a solution to it, like, and I don't know if you have one either. Because they're the professionals. They're the players that are supposed to be used to getting like going out west and figuring out a way to win no matter what because they're professional hockey players. So I really have like barely anything to say about that. I'm just looking at like the good teams around the NHL here. A lot of them like they do favor winning on the road for the most part. But you look at a team like Washington, they're 9-2 on the road. New Jersey's 10-4.
Oh wow.
Um, looking here, like Minnesota's 10-1-3, right? So you gotta put like some you gotta get used to playing on the road,
Mhm.
right? You can't there's one thing with momentum at home because that gives you that extra little juice, right? Like you're playing in front of your home crowd. But then when you're on the road, no one's cheering for you, right? You can't rely on that. You have to play your own game and play internally. And that's what this team has struggled with basically forever. And most teams at the NHL do, but the really good teams find a way to have a good road record, and the Sens don't. So
I think especially through the rebuild as well, one thing that's been a big problem is the inability to control the matchups from the coaches on the road, because when you have a rebuilding team, you start to get some of your young star players coming in, and they're going to face the top opposition. On home ice, you can kind of like shelter the weaker parts of your lineup, but on the road, you basically have no chance of doing that. So I don't know. We'd like to think that the Sens have improved their depth this year, but it doesn't really seem like it so far. We're probably going to get into that a little later, but yeah, it's I don't know what it is through different coaches now, through 3 different coaches with the Sens in the last couple of years. Just they haven't been able to improve that road record at all.
no, yeah, like we'll talk about the depth because that's becoming an issue now. You could sort of give them a little bit of a pass as the season starts, but eventually you got to start scoring. And you can't start relying on your top players all the time because like Timmy, he can only do so much, right? He has been amazing this year, like basically perfect.
Hmm. Yeah.
and you saw his goal tonight. Like, that's a clutch goal, like last minute of the game, and he puts it in the back of the net, ties it up, head into the first intermission, and then it's these little things. Like, I don't really, there's nothing that I can really point to, like one glaring thing or one player that really screwed up tonight. The defense sold though, for sure. Um, there was a couple of the goals where you look at that and you're like, come on, like
Yeah,
the Kopitar one.
the Kopitar one, especially because you had those two horrible line changes within like 30 seconds of each other. I think it was Jake Sanderson. He was waiting behind the net forever to make the breakout pass that he wanted, and he did make it. It connected, but then whatever forward he passed it to turned it over immediately,
Hmm.
and then those defensemen went off. Kings got a chance from that. They go, I think we get it out again, and then the forwards change again too early, and then it was just right back in. Kopitar and Moore and whoever else was there, they had the 3-on-2 against the D, who were just all alone there. And then yeah, Kopitar just standing alone in front of the net because that's an odd man rush for you. It just, I don't know what it is, but just complete like discombobulation at times tonight where there was the too many men penalties as well, and then specifically on that goal that you mentioned, they're just not like in sync whatsoever with those line changes.
Yeah, and like poor Forsey too. Like
It's
there
a
was
tough night for
maybe,
him.
yeah, like the left Ferrier goal. It's like, okay, yes, make the save, and he didn't. But then he held the team in it for a good while, and
Mm,
the Sens even had a lead too, right? They had a 2-1 lead midway through the second period. But then it was just that quick goal from Fiala,
yep. Quick
and
goals that we're used to seeing, whether it's the
yes,
Sens
yes.
scoring and the other team scoring again right after, or the other team just scoring
Hmm.
twice really quickly. That's
Yeah,
another theme too. Like you and I have talked about mental toughness for this team a lot, and it's like it feels like it
that's a
was a
part.
problem again
That's
tonight, eh?
Yeah, that's a classic example, right? Like, and that's what we're talking about playing on the road is the mental toughness, is because you don't have your crowd backing you, and you can't, like, you just have to play your own game. And I don't know, it's like maybe they let the noise like get to them a little bit. LA, like, I think they played pretty good tonight. And also, this is a matchup where I thought the Sens could have won tonight, but this is a matchup where the Sens don't, like, they will not play well against the Kings. They will not play well against the Hurricanes, because those teams just grind us down
Mm-hmm.
consistently. They play with speed, they play with purpose. They're so good at check-in, and that's what they were so good at tonight. Like, the Sens weren't winning a lot of board battles whatsoever.
Yeah.
And you look at like the Fiala goal, he went by like two guys, and
That
then
one really pissed me off.
exactly, he went by two guys, and he got some sort of opening and he shot it. And he was like pretty much gassed at that point, but he found a way to score. And I mean, the last three goals, it kind of is what it is. But like the Sens, they were lucky to get two goals, I think, and even keep this game close. And I would give the respect to Forsey to actually keeping them in the game for the first half of the game. He's your backup goalie at the end of the day. You want him to make the first saves and give you a chance, and that's what he did. So I'm not going to be putting a lot of the blame on him.
Yeah, you're right that the Sens were a little fortunate with the goals that they got. That first one was really against the run of play in that first period. I think the Sens were flat out bad in that first period. So getting the late period goal was huge. It did give them a bit of momentum because coming out to start the second, I actually thought they were quite good. I think they started the period with like 5-1 shots in their favor, and then they get the
Mhm.
goal. But yeah, again, as as I mentioned earlier, just the quick response from the Kings, and then that's it. Lights out for the Sens offense. They can't manage to pull like anything off after that. And you mentioned like the physicality and the checking from the Kings. I totally agree with that as well, because the way the Kings came out in that third period, they were just steamrolling the Sens on the forecheck. There was so
Yeah.
many times where the Sens were caught in their own zone just trying to make a breakout. Like they got the puck. The defenders for the Sens got the puck, and it looks like it should have been an easy breakout, but the one or two guys forechecking just absolutely hemmed them in. And it just seemed like the Sens could not match that physicality tonight. And you mentioned with the board battles as well, you have to be able to win some of those in the offensive zone against a team like the Kings to generate any chances, and they just didn't tonight.
Yeah, and okay, I don't want to say too much about the depth, right? But a lot of those players were not winning those battles
Mm-hmm.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the key with the depth is like you don't need them scoring a million goals, but you need them to win those small board battles in the corner to at least like hem guys in, grind them down, right? You want to grind that defense down. They don't have Drew Doughty in the lineup. They haven't had him for the entire season, right?
Hmm.
Like their top pair is Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov. With all due respect, that's a second pairing, right? And I'd argue that the Sens, at least on paper, have a better decor, at least on paper,
Yeah, I,
right?
I feel like we say this a lot where it's like, oh, the other team is missing this guy, they're missing that guy, so the
Doesn't
Sens the
matter.
Sens look better on paper, and then it never plays out that way, right? Like the I'm still mad about the Vancouver game where they didn't have Quinn Hughes for the entire time, and the Sens couldn't like even come close to managing to switch the tide in that game. But yeah, it's like we look at these teams on paper and we think the Sens should be able to match them, but then these guys that we think that they're not that good on the other team just manage to play above what they can. And it feels like the Sens don't really get that from their depth. Which again we'll get into later, as that's going to be our second segment. But before we get into that, like the other thing I want to talk about is you mentioned that second goal that Fiala scored where he just like worked his way through the slot past a couple of guys. Pinto, who we're also going to talk about in a bit, that was very soft on the puck from him in the slot. And then like Clevin as well on that goal, especially as a big physical defenseman. That's not how I'd like to see him defending in front of the net. That was a shocking moment. And specifically, I don't know how the stats ended, but through two periods, Clevin had a 26% for Corsi for the shot attempts. He was absolutely caved in tonight, and considering Donovan Sabrango has been called up, I hope he's in the lineup tomorrow. I think that Clevin did score his first goal, which gives him a little bit of grace to stay in the lineup for today. But
Hmm.
tonight, just wasn't feeling his game. And the last few games, especially during that homestand, he was having a lot of rough nights. So I don't know about you, but personally, I think I'd like to see Sabrango in and just give Clevin a bit of a rest, give him a chance to watch the game from the outside and, see what he's been doing wrong. And I don't know. What do you think I'm off base with that, or?
No, no, yeah, I agree. I agree. Like, yeah, I'm just watching his play right now, and I didn't realize how not egregious, but rough that looks. Getting caught out there on the road, but yes, so I would put him in, especially with the back to back, right? You're playing against Anaheim tomorrow, and you play like it's Anaheim, right? They should
Yeah,
win.
we
They
keep saying
should
that.
win.
Yep.
But like throw Sabrango in there. That's a good game to get in for your like 10th defenseman on the depth chart. He deserves the call up. I don't know how long he's going to stay regardless, because I mean he was playing the ECHL last year. But it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to, put him in. But here's what I'll say, like with Clevin, I'm just going to look at the game stats tonight. I want to take a look at the ice time, because I saw that Jensen had 24 minutes tonight.
Oh
Clevin
yeah.
had Clevin had 15. Okay, so that's the average night. He was -2. Why is JBD playing 12? Why is
It
this happening?
Yeah, it
Like,
seemed, I think in the third period they went back to Shabbat Jensen, if I saw correctly. First
yeah.
period, like Shabbat and Bernard Docker had a little bit of a rough start, but I thought they were turning it around as the period went on. And like they got the assist on that goal, on the Gaudette goal, right? So like
Yeah.
they managed to make a play there. But yeah, JBD didn't play much from that point on in the game. So yeah, it went back to Clevin Bernard Docker and Shabbat Jensen, which is interesting because the last, like, it's only been like 2 games ago where they actually split up the Shabbat Jensen pairing. We're already right back
Mhm.
to it.
Yeah, I think they do that though at the end of the game to they got to put all their cards in to like like, try to get a tying goal. It's like when you see Sanderson and Shabbat, when there's
Yeah,
an
I guess
offensive
so.
zone, they'll put Shabbat on the right side to like queue up a one timer or something. Has it worked? No, but very rarely does it. And yeah, but like at the same time, like JBD is actually a useful defenseman. Can we please use him? Because I'm not asking him to play 25 minutes or even 20. I'm just asking Travis Green to play him 17, 18 minutes a night, because Travis Hamonic is pushing 20 minutes per night. And Artem
Yeah.
Zub is out for a while. Like he is gone for 6 weeks off of a broken foot, and that's going to be hard to come back from. Travis Hamonic, it's fine if he's there for a game or two, and he wasn't, I don't think, an issue tonight, if you want to call it that, but he's not going to help you. He's not going to score, right? His offensive game is washed up at this point. He has one assist in like 23 games or something this year. He's not going to score. JBD, you might as well give him more there, more ice time, because you gotta, like, he's a younger player, right?
Hmm.
He's got to get used to reps, but also he has higher upside than what Hamonic is going to bring.
Definitely.
Um, so like, I don't know. I don't want to harp on Travis Green too much, but you are the coach, and honestly, when you get down to it, did Travis Green sort of lose the game for them, like, in a way tonight? With some of, you look at the Greg penalty, or the too many men call on Ridley Gregg there. On one hand, it's like, Ridley Gregg, what are you doing? Right? You can clearly see there's 5 players on the ice. Why are you stepping onto the ice? But then at the same time, as a coach, right, shouldn't you like be working on your game management and making sure stuff like that isn't going to happen, right? And keeping the players organized, because if you're a player on that bench there, I don't know like the system or whatever, but coaches should be wary, I think, with the flow of the play, and making sure the players go on the ice at the same time, because that wasn't the only too many men penalty tonight, right? There was 2 of them,
Hmm.
right? And you also, not to talk for too long here, but you go and you look at the line changes at the Kopitar goal where you were talking about there, right? So that's 2 goals right there. And if hockey is a game of details, if that doesn't happen, it's a 2-2 game.
Yeah, I feel like with that many line management failures in one game, like when it just happens once, you kind of think like, oh, one player made a mental mistake, he jumped on too early, or one guy stayed on too long, two guys jumped on, they thought that they were both supposed to go. Usually you just think, oh, it's a player's mistake, but yeah, when you have that many mistakes from the bench in one game, I get what you're saying, that it feels like the management of the bench doesn't seem to be like up to par. I'd be curious to, I don't know, like if I could ask anyone who's played at like a high level of hockey, I'd be curious to ask them like how much the coach impacts when there's
Yeah.
too many men on the ice. Like, is he saying like, "Oh, you guys are up next," and he's like making a mistake, or is it just that the players are supposed to know when they're supposed to go on next, and they're the ones who mess it up? It's interesting. It's kind of hard for me to say, but yeah, when it happens so many times in one game, I agree with you that it didn't seem like coaching was a strength for the Sens tonight.
No, definitely not. I mean, I that's you could look at the DJ Smith years and be like, okay, he was sort of the whipping boy regardless, because we were just not winning games, and for a couple of years, fans wanted him out, especially online. Um, but this is the first game that I probably looked at this team and being like, okay, the coaching staff could have stepped up a little bit there, because at the
Yeah.
same time they're new, but you also have to give them accountability.
Hmm.
You have to give everyone accountability at the end of the day. Um, and the coaching staff, I mean, they've been fine, I think, regardless. Like, you can only assess them so much, right? 25 games in the year. And I haven't seen any quotes from Travis Green where you're like, what are you saying? With DJ Smith, he's had a couple of those over the years.
There was a few, yeah. And you
Yeah.
mentioned DJ Smith too. I feel like the too many men penalties were a problem when he was the coach for a while as well. And it's like, if it is the player's fault, when a new coach comes in, you would hope that, the new coach would actually be able to identify that as a problem and like coach it out of the players. But we still just have the same problem too, right? So yeah, like overall, I don't think coaching has been like a huge issue, like obviously for the Sens this year, but in the end, if we still just end up with just as bad as a record of last year, then it's like they're kind of at fault too in the end.
Yeah. I mean, with the coaching, you hire Travis Green, which we can all agree that was not the pick that really anyone wanted. But because he doesn't have a great track record, regardless with New Jersey or with Vancouver. And with coaches, is that sometimes you hire the guy and you just hope it sticks and it works well with the team. And it's very rare that you have the opportunity to bring in a proven winner. Like, you look at a guy like Bruce Cassidy. That guy is a proven winner like pretty much every single level that he's at. because he was with Boston for that many years. He made the playoffs every single year. It would have been great to have him because he was he's an Ottawa guy. And then he goes to Vegas and instantly wins the cup, right? With Travis Green, there's not that track record right there, right? So
He's had one season in the NHL of making the playoffs, and
exactly.
I think it was the COVID year too.
It was,
So
yeah.
so a little bit of the bubble shenanigans there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's what I think, like, I don't want to get too off track here and stuff, but a lot of, fans have been frustrated in the past where they haven't like hired a proven winner, right?
hmm
And there's only so many of them in the league. Like you could look at like a group of maybe 5 to 10 coaches there where it's like you are probably going to make the playoffs. Like you look at like John Cooper, Peter Laviolette always seems to get it done. Pete DeBoer, right? Those types of guys. In the sense that like they always seem like they're getting the guys that are, maybe the tier 2, if you want to call her tier 3.
Yeah, it's the type of coach hirings where you'd think like, okay, if the Sens weren't like desperate to hire this guy, would they get hired
Mm-hmm.
at the same time? It's kind of like how when coaches leave the Sens for pretty much the entire last decade, they don't get a head coaching job at least for a while, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But I believe he has a 4-year contract, Travis Green.
hmm
So I'm not saying, oh, fire him, right? But what I'm saying is, he could have a little bit more accountability now.
I agree.
Um, he's got a chance to get his feet wet in this market, and we have expectations for this team. So
hmm I think overall, I'm like kind of putting off criticizing him too much just because I know that we can't call to fire the coach this year like we
no,
have for the last couple years. Is that, like you said, Travis Green with the 4-year deal, the recent hire, he's locked in. And if the season continues to tank, if we just have no chance for the playoffs, it's not going to be a coach firing. It's going to be time to totally tinker the roster. And yeah, speaking of tinkering the roster as well, we're gonna get into our next topic, I think, here, which is the lack of depth scoring for the Sens. But before we do that, just a quick ad read for our flagship show of the Game Over Network. Hyperdrive Hockey, all things hockey across various leagues in multiple countries. Whatever it is and wherever it is, Max, Daphne, and Kev have you covered for all your hockey news with a steady dose of fun and fan engagement. And now that the PWHL has actually started today, they are going to be covering some of that women's hockey as well too. So if you're looking for some women's hockey coverage, Hyperdrive Hockey will have that as well. You can find Hyperdrive Hockey on the Game Over Network YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts on the Hyperdrive Hockey page at thegameovernetwork.com. Now, yeah, the second topic here about the Sens depth scoring, I had to pull up the old HockeyDB team page because I just wanted to see how bad it actually is for some of these players. I feel like you don't realize how bad it is until you look. But the first one we'll start with, which was slightly alluded to earlier, was Shane Pinto. At this point now, they probably haven't added tonight's game yet, so I'm going to say 16 games. He has 1 goal and 2 assists and a -7. So to start the topic of the Sens depth scoring, what the hell is wrong with Shane Pinto?
he has to be injured in some way. Like, right? He doesn't look like bad out there, but he never has. There's just something there. Like he's not the guy to get down on himself, I don't think, right? He's not what he's a happy-go-lucky guy. He always has been. And whether he's played third line center, play in the top 6, whether he's gone through scoring droughts. So I'm not like expecting him to be, a guy that's really hard on himself consistently, but he's not shooting the puck a ton.
hmm
And yeah, 3 points. Like he scored in the first game, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
that's where
right.
you
It was the first game.
yeah, it was the first period, and that's where you point to, okay, he has to be injured, right? Because there's one thing of getting up to speed. I think he came back in what was it the Vegas? No, he got injured in the Vegas game, but he came back eventually, and I just feel like he has a nagging injury
hmm
at this point.
That's what I'm
And
thinking too, because yeah, 0 points since coming back, and it's been like 10 games now. And
yeah.
like, I don't know, you said he doesn't look too bad out there, but I feel like when I watch him out there, he looks much slower than usual. And like you
hmm
said, not shooting much. I feel like he isn't getting himself into those shooting positions like he usually does, which is probably attributed to being slower, lack of foot speed. Like, I don't really remember, but did they ever actually announce what the injury was? Was it, or was it
They didn't.
that was one of the secretive ones, eh? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
would not be surprised if it's some lower body injury, like ankle or something like that, you know?
hmm Well, that's what we saw with Stutzel last year, is that he never actually like he had 70 points still because he's Tim Stutzla, but he wasn't at his best, and now he's healthy, and you can see it, right? You can see
Hmm.
Stutzla just not dom. I mean, if there's any player on the team that's going to dominate, it's Tim Stutzla. He has 29 points in 23 games this year. He's on pace for 100 points. But then, like last year, it was just gnawing at him the entire year. And with Pinto, it's like if he's actually injured right now, when do you pull the plug and have him like rehab? Not
Yeah.
rehab, it would be surgery at that point, whatever it is. Um, I think his face-offs are good and he's killing penalties, so he's providing some use elsewhere in a way. But uh, I don't know. I feel like he's chasing the play a lot.
Definitely. And it's tough when it comes to like wondering if you should just shut him down and take him out of the lineup again to rehab even more, because I feel like we don't have anyone good to take his place. Like, in terms of call ups, they have Zach Ostapchuk up here right now. He doesn't really move the needle. You wouldn't want to be like giving him that much more responsibility at the moment, I don't think. And there's not really any other great call up options in Belleville that play center. It would mostly be like wingers like Crookshank that are available, right? And like Jan Yannick has been injured, so you don't have him to go for. So it's like it's tough because Pinto is not playing well, but even if you took him out, I don't know if you get like that much better of an option. Like maybe move Ridley Gregg to center on the third line and then call up a winger or something, but I don't know.
I I think maybe not. This is not what they're thinking, but it's just maybe a theory, right? They bring Pinto back like maybe quicker than they should have, and then they got really excited about the record that the Sens have had in the past with Timmy, Norris, and Pinto down the middle, right? And now it's not helping because they're
Yeah.
starting to lose more games than win them. So it's like one thing gets better, one thing gets worse. I think Steos with the Zoop injury should be in the market for a defenseman, but he should also be in the market for another center out there
Yeah, I agree.
because right now they're carrying one extra forward and they have the cap space now with Artem Zub now on LTIR. I don't think this is a move that they would look to make maybe like tomorrow, but maybe pretty soon with the Sens, maybe throw out a pick for a player that can, play down the middle a little bit because God, that he's moving up the lineup, right? So, and he's on the wing now. So then you kind of have an opening for a center spot. And I don't think Ostapchuk should be in the NHL lineup just right now. I think he should be in the AHL.
And yeah, like I look at another guy too, like Mike Amadio, 4 points in 23 games now. He's not ever been a huge point producer, but the last couple seasons, he had 16 goals, 14 goals. Right now he's got 2 goals in 23 games, which is on pace for less than 10. It's like 7 or 8 in total. So like that's another guy where I'm like, this is someone that Steos brought in to potentially help out the issue that we're talking about right now, and it just hasn't really panned out. And obviously David Perron has been in and out of the lineup for various reasons, but 0 points for him when he's played. So it's been rough. Like I agree that Steve Steos should be looking for someone to add here, but also it's tough that the guys that he did already add for this issue have just not really panned out.
Yeah. Like it's time to call out some guys at this rate. And
Hmm.
Michael Amadio is one of them because you look at the top six, right? Timmy 28 point or 29 points. Kachuk 26, Batherson 24, Giroux 17. Could he be a bit better? Sure, but that's still fine for a 37-year-old. Norris 15 and 23. Pretty good still. And then you look at it's like, okay, Gaudette, because I think because we added Gaudette and he's scoring like crazy, it kind of blocks out a lot of the narrative about the depth scoring.
Yeah, because the
Um,
thing is, Adam Gaudette was the depth scoring, but now he's on the first line. We were
yeah,
praising the depth scoring at the beginning of November and the end of October because of Adam Gaudette,
it
and
was all
now
Gaudette.
now he's a top six forward. So then once he's out of the bottom six, there is no bottom six scoring now.
No, so you can look through the players here. Greg has 7 in 20. I think he is, it's getting a little bit better. And you could point to the chances that these players have had. I don't care. I don't care. Put the puck in the back of the net. We need to see results at this rate. And as fans, we deserve to look at the players and be like, okay, I think you could be better here.
Hmm.
You look at Gregor, 3 points in 18 games. Not
Yeah.
the biggest score, but I would like to see a little bit more. You could look at, I'm just looking at the lineup here. Of course,
Cousins as
Amadio.
well, 4 points in
Yes.
21 games.
And Cousins, it's not like he's getting like 6 minutes a night. Like he's getting 11, 12 opportunities and stints in the top six. Pinto, yeah, same thing. Like I hope he's healthy. And then Perron, it's like a unique case, right? So I'll be empathetic with it, but at the same time, this guy is a 36-year-old veteran who has
Hmm.
had a lot of longevity in this league. Like he got drafted and he went straight to the NHL. He didn't play a single game in the AHL. He has a ton of experience. I need more from him whenever he's in the lineup on the ice.
Yeah, I agree. And is he injured right now, or is it family things again? Do you
I
know?
think he's
He
injured.
is
Yeah, he's
actually
injured.
injured again. Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that because I wasn't sure. But yeah, it's just guys that need to step up. We don't expect any of them to be big point producers, but when they all have like 2 goals, 1 goal, or 0 goals on the season, at some point you need to at least be able to chip in. And the Sens just haven't been getting that from the bottom six, other than Adam Gaudette, who is also no longer a bottom six forward. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's tough. I don't really know if there's an internal solution here other than just these guys need to play better. So I agree with what you said earlier about Steos definitely needs to be looking for a defenseman, but also if he could like snag a depth forward somewhere, if someone's like kind of
Yeah.
on the outs of their forward lineup on their team, like maybe try to scoop someone else up on from the outside.
Yeah, like I'll just even compare it to the team that we played against tonight, right? I'm sorting by ice time by forwards. So you got Kopitar, who's first with 29 points in 25 games. And then so you start to look at the players there in the bottom six in terms of ice time. Laferriere has 20 points and
Yeah.
he's seventh in ice time. Fogel has 11 and 25 plus 7, 15 minutes. Turcotte, 11 minutes, 8 points in 20 game plus 11. So and then even Trevor Lewis, like he has 7 points in 25 games and
That's
is a plus,
crazy.
and
Trevor
he's
Lewis
playing
is a
11
guy.
minutes.
He's a guy you would think would just be cooked at this point, and he's still like
Yeah,
better than the whole Sens bottom six. Like,
exactly, right?
holy. Hmm.
So I don't know. Depth is just depth at the end of the day, but you need even if you're just looking at like some of the better teams in the league, like I'm gonna look at Winnipeg right now and sort by ice time. Probably their worst player is Morgan Barron, and he has 3 points in 24 games. Um, and that is basically what a guy like Cousins has this year, what a guy like Amadio has this year, Pinto, like they're the same point totals, and he is the worst forward
Yeah,
for the
we've
Winnipeg
got like
Jets.
3 or 4 guys with comparable production who
Yeah.
are playing like every night if they're healthy. So,
Hmm.
yeah, that's this was like the number one thing that we were talking about coming into the off season too was the forward depth and specifically the third pairing defense depth. And here we are 25 games in almost and we're saying we need more depth forwards and we're saying Tyler Clevin didn't look so great. Who else are we going to put in? Donovan Sabrango, who was in the ECHL last year, even though he has made really good strides this year in the AHL. And then here we are again with Travis Hamonic in the top four because Zub is always injured. So it just seems like the things that I was worried about in the offseason are
They're
obviously
here.
big issues again. Yeah, they have arrived as
They,
issues.
they have a right, and it's not like the biggest issue in the world, I guess, still, but like thank God that a lot of the top six forwards haven't gone injured, right? Because
Yeah.
when that happens, oh my goodness, and I don't know, because you can point to the injuries or whatever as much as you want to, but this team has been pretty lucky with injuries so far, I think. I don't have a stat for that or anything, but really the only lost games we've seen is Sub, and is that it? Like that has to be Perron. Sure, I guess
Mm-hmm.
it was an
Yeah.
injury. But I mean the long-term ones, right? Pinto to some extent, but that's it. That's it. Like
Most other guys
there's
have been healthy, yeah. And
yeah,
when those guys have been injured, we haven't had suitable replacements like at all whatsoever. So
no. Yeah. So like and I remember we headed into this year and we basically had like if Zach McEwen's playing in your everyday lineup,
yeah,
you got to make some changes. You
he
got to sign like other guys.
he had a good run, but yeah, back in Belleville now for him. Like he since he had a good start to the season, it's like if they call him back up again, I won't be mad at it, but it's definitely not gonna solve anything. It's not gonna fix any issues at all.
Mhm. Yeah, like and even if you compare it to the best teams in the league, Nick Cousins did you're on your fourth line. I think that on paper he's a valuable fourth liner because he can score and he's not bad defensively. Does he
Supposedly he
take
can score.
Yeah, I mean he's been one of the better like depth like fourth liner scorers in past
Yeah,
years. Like
I just mean we haven't seen it yet this year. Is
yeah,
all.
exactly. But in the playoff run, he was not. He played, I think, half the games. So that's where you point to like this team needs quality and quality third and fourth lines out
Hmm.
there,
It's
and
the
like finding
same.
a way.
It's the same with Noah Gregor too. He was in and out of the
Hmm.
lineup on the Leafs, and then he comes here, and yeah, he's in and out of the lineup. But I think it was an injury when they took him out, so he's still been like playing very regularly. Sometimes it's good to grab guys who are kind of on the outs on good teams because maybe they can excel with better ice time. But these are the type of guys that we kind of already know what they are, and that's like on a good team in and out of the lineup. But they come to Ottawa and then they just play every game because we have no one better.
Exactly, and that's been an issue for a while. Like I swear, I don't. Other than the teams in the early 2000s when the Sens were like literally deep, um, the past years like we you can only complain about the depth so much, but you need it. And even like okay, you look at Mike Amadio. Last year he played, or let's look at Vegas's playoff run. He played 16 games, and I don't remember him being injured. I could be wrong on this, but he didn't play all of the games. I think he came into the lineup later after there was an injury there, and he played well. He had 10 points, 16 games, but he was basically like your 11th or 12th forward on that team. That team was so deep on Vegas, and now he's like on your roster, maybe your eighth. You're like on your depth chart in terms of ice time, he's eighth.
Hmm.
So there's a jump there. And I think like he has to be better. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
was kind of in his corner. And like you said, like it's a good thing to pick off players off of winning teams, but and sometimes it works when you elevate their role, but a lot of the times it doesn't. Um, and I think it's a lot about slotting at the end of the day. And like if you look at Amadio, probably should be your 10th or 11th forward, maybe on your depth chart. He's 7 or 8 right now. Gregor is in your top 9. Like he should be an extra player, I think. Same thing with Cousins. McEwen is in the AHL now. There's a lot of moving parts. And like there's going to be an uncomfortable conversation about when Adam Gaudette stops scoring.
Yeah.
So who's going to step up there? you know?
Because he's definitely riding a heater, and we we can't expect it to like last too much longer. Like
No.
at this pace, he's probably gonna score over 20 goals on the season, but it's who knows when that's gonna be. Like he's gonna go cold for a while for sure. Um, I'm looking at Belleville quickly because I'm like, oh my god, who can we call up? They've already called up Cole Reinhardt, and he's been decent. Other than that, though, it's like I want to see Angus Cruikshank. He's got 9 goals in 15 games in Belleville, but like other than that, that's it. Like that's the only real option that we have down there. So it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, Crooker, there's some guys you want to make the NHL, and I don't like saying this, but and because they're good guys, like I've interviewed him once and like he was such a great interview and he's just like he looks like he's a genuine human being and it's a guy I'm rooting for, but sometimes you gotta wonder, it's like you can put up all the points at the AHL level, but does he fit in an NHL system? And
Mm-hmm.
with a guy like him, he's a fifth round pick and he's undersized and isn't known as a center or a defensive player. He's not going to get a lot of chances to make the NHL, and you got to make it count when you do. And he got sort of his opportunity, I think, so far. And like for him, I wouldn't be surprised if he's out of the organization by next year.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I think I just want to see him get one more shot this year, and then we
Hmm.
can decide for good whether or not like he's gonna do it. He's kind of in that Mike Hoffman zone before Mike Hoffman actually had a breakout year, where it's like
Yeah.
he always scores like guaranteed production in the AHL, but then just can't really he's just on the fringe in the AHL. So yeah, like I'd like to see him get another call up, but again, it's not like a sure thing or anything that's gonna just instantly improve the team's bottom six scoring. I'm just like we know he can score goals, so I'd like to see him get a chance, but it's just because we're so desperate. We're so desperate
I know. I
for the
just
bottom six scoring.
like I just want like quality like bottom six players, guys who are gonna go get in, like get out, and just like you could look at them and say, okay, they put up a good performance for like 80% of the season, and you can look at the stats, like you look at Winnipeg, right? Um, like I know plus minus isn't the be and end all, but like Nino Niederreiter has 7th in ice time. He is plus 12, 15 points. Cole Perfetti is 8th. He has 17 points in 24 games. Nemestikov, remember him?
I wish we
He's
had him. That
ninth.
would be nice.
Yeah, he's ninth in ice time. He has 15 points, a plus 10. Iafallo is the next one, 8 points in 24 games. So it's frustrating. Terry McGurn saying that Reinhardt had 3 shots tonight, same amount as Amadio in his last 5 games.
Oh geez, that's rough.
This is bad.
Yeah,
This is
and
bad.
like Amadio had that one scoring chance tonight where the Kings totally whiffed it, threw it right in front, and he just puts it right into the goalie's chest. He was unpressured for like a good second or two to take
Yeah.
that shot, and it was like not even remotely threatening. That
No.
was a bad look.
And he's frustrated right now too. I get that there's times for you to adjust to maybe a new market, a new team, new system, but he's been a bottom six forward his entire career. You that if you were a guy who's bounced around on waivers too, you should you got to sort of find a way to figure it out regardless, because you only have so many shots in this league. And he got the bag, right? Not the bag, but he got a good, nice little 3-year contract. Um, so I want to see him step up though. Like he's a guy we need. We need him right now.
That's the tough part is it's feeling like you could maybe healthy scratch him, but at the same time he's the guy that you need. It's the same with Pinto where it's like they need to be better, but if you take them out of the lineup, there probably isn't much going to be a much better replacement coming up. So that's the tough part. I don't know where we go from here with the bottom six scoring, but we might Steve Staios might need to look on the outside to bring someone in, I think.
I agree. Yeah, because like with your depth, right? You can't always just develop them. Like they can't be guys that are coming through the system all the time. Um, like I'm talking about like a Greg or a Pinto, right? Those are guys that are probably like in the depth category, your third line. But then a lot of the other guys, you got to sign them, you got to trade for them. Um, and you look at like I don't know why I always use this example, but like Barclay Goodrow on Tampa, right? They acquired him through trade. Same thing with Blake Coleman, and they were like quality pieces. Like when you look at a team that like you can throw out your third line for 13 minutes per night and they just play well, like every single game, and you can get that consistency with a lot of these forwards in the bottom six, that they haven't like had that reputation of being like quality bottom six players like their entire career. The only one I can think of is maybe Perron, because he's played in the league so long, but he's more of like a tweener. He's like a top
Yeah,
six, middle
he
six
used to
guy.
be a top six forward, and he's only like not a top six forward anymore because he's 36, right? So starting to slow
Yeah,
down with the production. So yeah, it's like it's tough. He should. I'd like to think when he's back in the lineup, he should eventually be able to start scoring because I don't think Perron's been bad when he's been in the lineup, but at a certain point, it's just the numbers don't lie, right?
no, no. And you can't like you can point to the good stories and stuff about Gaudette, getting 12 goals and stuff this year. But if you're not winning games, like I don't know about you, but I'm not really gonna care that much.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I think that about does it for that topic. So I'm gonna throw it into another quick ad read. Game Over Network is an independent production focused on community, inclusion, and quality people. If you're interested in supporting the Game Over Network, we have crowdfunding options available. In the description of this episode, you'll find a link to our Patreon page, which has multiple donation tiers available. And we're also working on a page through LaRouche, a crowdfunding platform for companies originating in Quebec. For LaRouche, we're aiming to raise 15K, and if we hit that goal, we'll gain access to government grants that will allow us to employ more people. If you have any ideas for what you'd like to see as giveaways from these crowdfunding efforts, let us know in the comments on Twitter, Instagram, or on our Discord server, which is open to join to the public. You can find that on thegameovernetwork.com. Into period 3, I think this is going to be a little bit of a shorter segment because we've gone on quite a bit already about the Sens, but I just thought it would be kind of interesting to take a look at how the Sens and the Kings have gone in different directions since that 2020 draft, where the Kings took Byfield and the Sens took Stützle. Obviously, because we have to give the obligatory brag that Stützle has more career goals than Byfield has career points. So we have to mention that just because it's funny. So thank you to the Kings for not selecting Tim Stützle. But we can't brag too much because the Kings have made the playoffs the last 3 years and the Sens have not really gotten close at all. I think there's a lot of reasons for this that are some are in the Sens control, some are not in the Sens control, but I thought it'd be interesting to look at this. I took a few notes, but before I get into them, what are your thoughts off the top of the head?
Yeah, you could always point to the Stützle and Byfield thing, and the Byfield he has 10 points this year. But you can mask a lot of that when your team's winning.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I think just to start off, one thing that I think that the LA Kings did very well at is not trading Doughty or Kopitar
Mm-hmm.
in
Yep.
those
That's the
years.
number one, I think.
Yeah, you keep the guys who you literally won with. No, the Sens didn't win before, but you keep the guys that are, solid players. And sure, maybe their contracts weren't great, or maybe they might have been a little bit overpaid, but you were going through the rebuild regardless. Doughty was at 11 million and Kopitar was at 10, I think. And they kept them. And that winning culture, I think, just kind of transitioned into the next group. And they made some good signings and they drafted well. Mikey Anderson's one of them. Brant Clark's here now. You look at LaFerriere. They signed, they kept, also Adrian Kempe. They kept him. And when you look at the Sens and you look at the rebuild, they traded everyone. Who
Mm-hmm.
was it? Stone? They could
Yeah.
have signed him.
I would say the comparable would be if the Sens kept Carlson and Stone. And obviously that wouldn't have been possible due to various circumstances such as contracts and the like. But that's such a major thing, is being able to keep those guys that have won before and they're still at the top of their game. Like Kopitar is way over a point per game. Doughty hasn't played it all this year, but he was still really good last year. And the crazy thing for me is that Doughty got injured in preseason and hasn't played a single game. So it's not like they were expecting Doughty to miss games, and they've still been able to cover up for him perfectly fine. They haven't had Doughty at all, and it hasn't been an issue this year, which is crazy.
Yeah, and you know what? The one thing that I will say is with the Kings is that okay, they might not have the high end talent like the Sens might have, because you look at Stützle and then if let's say you're playing like NHL 25, right? Stützle is like a 89, 90 overall on a roster because he can score a lot and individually he's a very good player, but LA is just so much more well rounded and they have a good defense core, and that can cover up a ton of mistakes. I think they're coached pretty well. You could even look at a guy like Todd McClellan. The second they went on a bad streak, they fired him.
Yeah, that was
right?
quick. He had no leeway.
Yeah, the Sens are not doing that. They are not the same thing with Boston, right? Same thing with Boston. The second they go on a bad streak in Montgomery's 4 years or whatever he was there, they fire him. The Sens aren't doing that. And it's not to say what is better, but those teams have won in the past, right? So a lot of teams out there, you look at the Detroits, the Ottawas, they've kept coaches way too long. I'm not saying fire green, but there's just a winning culture there, and it's well rounded, and players go into the lineup and they know what, like the coaches know what they're getting out of them, and the players know what to do. And the Sens, it's sort of you don't know what you're gonna get.
Hmm. You're totally right about the winning culture versus the losing culture, and like with the Kings keeping those old players, I thought it would be kind of interesting to look at the like average age rankings throughout the league. And surprisingly, the Sens and Kings are actually like right next to each other. The Sens being the seventh youngest and the Kings being the eighth youngest team. But funny enough, despite that, the Kings players in total have 1,340 more games of experience, which is entirely just Kopitar and Doughty right there, right? Like
Yeah.
on the Sens, you have Giroux being like an 1,000 game player, and then on the Kings, you've got two of them left. So it's like they're starting to bring in some of the younger players now, but they still had a lot of veterans throughout the rebuild. But interestingly, as well, the only players that are still on the Kings roster from that 2020 team when they drafted in the top three, obviously Doughty, Matt Roy, who's gone now, but he did stay throughout the last few years, and the only forwards being Kopitar and Kempe. So the entire rest of the roster did turn over, but they kept the right guys. They kept those key
Yeah.
pieces. And the other thing I'll say too is that I think LA has a little bit of easy mode when it comes to like bringing in free agents and veteran players and
It's
convincing them
true.
to sign too, because who wants to come over to Ottawa in the middle of a rebuild? No one. People will only maybe want to come to Ottawa like when they're good. But in
Yeah.
in that 2020 offseason, they brought in Philippe Deneau and Victor Arvidsson, which was like 2/3 of a really good second line for them for the past few
Yeah.
years. Obviously, Arvidsson's gone now, but like Philippe Deneau is a huge key player in the middle of the lineup there. And like they brought in Trevor Moore, that was through a trade, I think. Fiala through a trade as well. Gavrikov is huge as well. He was playing on the first pairing tonight. It's just bringing in the right veterans. I feel like the Sens haven't really been able to do, but it is easier for the Kings because even though they were coming off a bad season in 2020, they're still able to give a huge contract to a guy like Deneau and just sign a big free agent anyway. So I feel like that's part of it too, is that it's just a little bit harder for Ottawa, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. You gotta do what you got with what you got. I don't know if that was a good quote or not, but
No,
like
I know what you mean.
like with LA, yeah, it's sunny down there. It's warm year round. Sure, maybe the taxes are high compared to Texas or Florida as an NHL player, but still, it's still a good lifestyle, and they've won in the past, right? With the Sens, they got like for the most part, it's a different thing now because the culture is better, right? You have a like your owner's good. It seems like just overall the organization is just working better together. Like the people internally, you look at Ian Mendez, like he's working for the team. That means that there are really good things going on. But you still live in Canada. So you gotta find a way, the Sens, to make this work internally.
Hmm.
Because I know we were talking about like the players that we signed over the off season and the depth players especially. If you're a depth player, you're hopping to like you're going like let's say you're like a Michael Amadio. At the end of your career, you're probably playing for like six or seven maybe different teams,
Yeah.
right? And you've proven yourself that you're useful in the NHL. Imagine like seven teams come up to you in the offseason and they all offer you the same contract. You have Ottawa's in one of them, but then there's like probably four other American teams there. And one or two of them might even be down south and they have a better lifestyle and warmer weather, less taxes. It's just it's an unfortunate thing. So what the Sens have to do is they have to build eternally. And they need to get back to their ways of like remember in those years that they just developed super well. And they still do, I think, but I think they really got to prop it up a little bit, especially in the past couple of years when you look at the years from 2021 to you could even lump 2024 in their drafts, where I don't think
Yeah.
they have a single player other than Ostapchuk in the lineup right now.
It's like their player development is good if the draft picks are actually good, but some of the draft picks have just been like kind of dead on arrival,
Yeah.
right?
Like they have to be exceptional when it comes to drafting.
Yeah.
Because its league is not going to favor the Sens
Hmm.
ever.
Hmm.
They're a small market Canadian team, and they're lumped between Ottawa or between Toronto and Montreal. It's never going to be in their favor.
Yeah, and the last point I wanted to make on the Kings is that I thought it was interesting that they've done a pretty good job of having consistent goaltending throughout the last few years, despite having to use a lot of different goalies. So, like, if you go back through their last 3 seasons that they made the playoffs, the first year they still had Jonathan Quick with a 910 save percentage, which obviously legendary player. Still, that was his last good year. The next year he fell off, but they still they called up Phoenix Copley, and then they got Corpusalo at the deadline, which, yeah, we share multiple mutual goalies in the past few years with the Kings, where it's like they looked,
Cam Talbot.
yeah, they looked all right on the Kings, and then they come to Ottawa and they're complete ass. So Corpusalo doesn't stay in LA. They go for Cam Talbot instead, who just, it didn't work out in Ottawa. Then he puts up a 913 save percentage with the Kings. And if I remember correctly, he had a really hot start, started to tail off a little bit, but then they had David Riddick come up and put up a 921 save percentage as the backup. And then you saw him in net tonight. I mean, he's not like amazing or anything, but he gets the job done. I think his stats on the year aren't amazing, but from what I've seen, he's like trending up lately. And then they get Darcy Kemper as well, who's got a 903 on the year, which is roughly average, but his stats are a little bit skewed by that 8-7 game against the Sens, where he was in for all 8 goals. But it's like they managed to get good goaltending for cheap too. Like, they don't give out big contracts to any of these guys, and we're on a second GM here now who has had to be trying to bring in a starting goalie. It remains to be seen with Linus Ullmark whether or not it turns out good or bad, but it's trending bad right now, and it's like, I'm just jealous that the Kings can constantly bring in these different goalies and get something good out of them. Part of that is the way the team plays. Obviously, they're very good defensively. They play a physical defensive style, but like, damn, I wish we could do that and get good results out of our goalies, because it's the complete opposite trend in Ottawa.
Well, you gotta wonder too. Like, there's got to be a stat or some sort of article out there. What goaltenders out there like are good when they don't get a lot of shots, right?
Oh yeah.
Because like Forsberg is a classic example. If he doesn't get a lot of shots, he's gonna allow, like, let's say he allows 22 shots in a game, he's probably gonna allow 3 or 4 goals. But then he's gonna get like 45 shots in a game and allow 2, because he's just feeling the rubber the entire game, and that brings up a save percentage. This happened a ton in the 2021-22 season, where Forsberg got that 3-year extension, and he, at the end of the year, he had a 917 save percentage, which is crazy to think about, something that we could get right now for the Sens.
Yeah.
But it's because they were hemmed in so
probably
much
40
that
shots
year.
a night.
Yeah, like they had Zaitsev in the top 4, Holden in the top 4. Like, there wasn't a lot of good going on in the defensive end there. But I like, for a backup next year, if Forsberg leaves, and I'm not super high on Sogard, to be honest, if you're going to go get a backup, this is where like a guy like Sean Tierney comes into play. You got to find a backup that plays well for 20 games a year and can like survive going through a game, like go through like 6 or 7 minutes without getting a shot against, and not let up a stinker because you're not feeling the rubber, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's sort of the thing with Ullmark too, it seems.
I was gonna
like.
say, I feel like that's happened with Ullmark too. Obviously, the Philly game, we remember, it was like 5 goals on 19 shots or something by the end of it. But then you see the San Jose game, it was almost 40 shots, and he was dialed in all game, and even like the goals that went in, you couldn't really blame him for it. So, and like even that first game of the year against Florida, where we were getting pretty much caved in for the second and third periods, that was like his other best game in the season too. But then there's been other nights where, like, there was the game against Boston where they only had 16 shots. He allowed 2. Obviously, that wasn't his fault. He got the win. But yeah, you're right that it's interesting that they almost specifically need to find a goalie who can actually remain dialed in when not facing a lot of shots. Because the Sens, for the most part, other than that San Jose game, don't give up a lot of shots this year. So that's an interesting like difference, especially because the Kings too routinely don't give up a lot of shots, yet their goalies still end up with pretty good stats in the end.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at the shots against here in the entire league. LA is they're first. They're first.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
So like, and if you sign a goalie, like you don't need to go out and get a guy and sign him for $8 million, right? You just go get 2 guys who like are, find goaltenders in the net, and they will have a huge workload. Like, so yeah, they're first this year. Let's take a look at last year here too. LA was fourth best.
Yep.
So they have a prototype of a team that just it's like go out there, grind, and be good two-way players. Uh, that's the same thing with their forwards, is the same thing with the defense. When you go down the middle, you have Anze Kopitar, Phil Deneau, like two Selkie level winners in the draw every night. And like are veterans at this point in their career. And then their defense are just smart. Like they're not gonna score a ton, right? But like Doughty, Mikey Anderson is like one of the better defensive defensemen in the league. Uh Gavrikov too, like he's stepped up and is really good. Like he's smart. There's a lot of those players that are just they're all kind of the same guys, but there's a reason why it's meshed well, and there's a reason why this team has not allowed a lot of shots.
Yeah, I think if the Sens could have a guy like Gavrikov, have a guy like Mikey Anderson, or just have like a whole defense core built like that, it would be more effective than what we have now of like this weird mix of puck movers and then guys who can't move the puck. It's like you got to find that medium balance, which is hard to
Yeah.
do. It's hard to do to get the right
Yeah,
makeup.
yeah, I'm looking at here, like the two teams that don't match up well, or we don't match up well against. So since the 2022 season, that's when I'm putting LA into that category because that's when they started to be good. They are second best in shots against. And can you guess who's the first team?
Carolina.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So like we don't match up well against those two teams. That's for sure.
Well, that'll go into our last segment of the night. I gotta pull up the merch ad read real quick. We'll get that QR code on the screen and the slideshow to cover up Damian's face because we got to show off our beautiful products that we have here. What better way to support something you love than by rocking it as clothing? Game Over's apparel line has dropped with 3 unique designs. Whether you feel the nostalgic pull of our retro skater design, want to make a statement with our established design, or if you want to wear your love for goalies proudly with our live and die by the goalie design, or if you just need another coffee to get through the winter, we've got you covered. Designed by Brady Chalice from Game Over Winnipeg, use the QR code on stream now and take a look through our apparel store and help us rebuild local sports media in Canada while repping your community. And you see the Senators designs in the slideshow there too. If you do happen to be a fan of another team or another Game Over market, we do have versions of each design for each other Canadian team. So that is there as well. Good Christmas gifts too. Christmas is coming up. if you know
Yeah.
anyone else who likes the show, is a fan of the show, we've got that. We've got plenty of merch available. So if you need some extra Christmas gift ideas, we've got that right there. Now, the last segment for the night, I think, is probably going to be a quick one. For looking at the chat is not super active because probably people are just pissed off after that loss. I don't think anyone was too excited to come discuss this loss here tonight. But I'll point out Terry McGurran said, "How are we going to create the cap space to get that extra right-hand D or forward?" And it's an interesting question because, yeah, Zub is on the long-term injured reserve right now. It totally depends how long he's out, though. If that broken foot has him out until, like, playoff time, then that's lucky. You can use his cap space just for the rest of the year. But if he would come back before that, then it becomes a problem, right?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of like players that we could move off of the roster that like have a decent amount of cap room just in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the bottom six, like because if you're trading a top six player, you got to make a calculated move, whether it's like Norris or Batherson or whatever. Like I could see a potential scenario where like one of the top six or top four defensemen is traded this year. But in terms of your depth, right, you're looking at Perron. I don't know if there's a lot of takers for that.
No, that's the tough part is they spent so much on like the middle 6, bottom
Mhm.
6 forwards. Like Amadio and Perron is 6.6 million combined, and they have a total of 4 points, all of which have come from Amadio.
Lovely.
So that makes it real rough to actually move any money around or have any
Yeah.
space.
Like Greg's on an ELC, Cousins makes 800K, Gaudette makes 800K. Same thing with McEwen. Pinto, you're not moving him, right? Like it's not
No.
happening. and Jensen like has been their best consistent player this entire season. Klevin, no. Hamonic makes 1.1. No one's gonna take that. So Forsberg, but then even then, like
Then you need Sogard,
2.7, no.
and is he ready? He's injured too, so like yeah, if you
Hmm.
move Forsberg, you got to call someone else up or get another goalie back
Yeah.
for cheaper. So yeah, it is tough. Like I would assume at most they would be looking at bringing in guys who make 800K to like maybe a little over 1 million, and then if Zub comes back earlier, you can squeeze it a little bit, depending on if the person you bring in is any good. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
tough. You can't just like go out and get someone who makes like 4 million.
No. I think this is gonna be something that like we might see around maybe Christmas time. And Steos is gonna have to get this right if this thing continues to go on in the Sens aren't making the playoffs because I think we can I'm not gonna like sit here and freak out after every single loss now because I've sort of come to understand that this team probably isn't making the playoffs,
Yeah,
right? And I
at this
hate to
point,
say it,
yeah.
right? But um I think it's maybe just for my sanity because we've been hurt so many times that you can't just sit here and be like, yeah, they're gonna do it. Like they always find a way. And I feel like it's one thing because remember like the 2012 to 2015 era, like we were always the underdogs, but we always found a way to make it
Yeah,
work.
they always gave you the hope where like now they give you false hope where they're like, "Oh, you think they can come back in this game?" No, they'll score like they'll be down 2 and they'll score once with the empty net and never tie it.
Hmm.
Um but back then it was like they were never really out of it. They were in and out of the playoffs every year, but even when they were out of the playoffs, they would at least like have you hoping until like January,
Yeah.
February, right? Now it's just we're dead in November every
Yeah.
year.
We're in two different eras where it's like from 2012 to 2017, you like it was a team that wasn't great on paper and but always found a way to get extra points and win in overtime and like those are the Carlson years, right? Of him being captain basically. And then now you have the Kachuk years or whatever you want to call it, and it's just it's the opposite. It's like
Mhm.
they're good on paper, but then they can't come back. They can't like they do win games in overtime, um, but they don't find a way to get it done.
Yeah.
Uh,
They're never
so
forcing overtime themselves. If they get to overtime,
no,
it's like a game that was already tied after the second period, like the Boston game, and then just nothing happens in the third.
yeah,
It's you're right that those teams in the mid 2010s, it was like the roster almost never looked good on paper, but they would
it never
outperform
did.
it on occasion. At least every couple of years, they would manage to get in as the seventh or eighth seed and actually play some entertaining hockey. But yeah, now it's like, oh, they look so good on paper, and they just don't. It, for lack of a better term, it feels like they don't have that dog in them. Like it's just
Yeah, it's true.
they don't have it. It seems like, and it's hard. It's gonna be hard to fix that, especially with not a lot of cap flexibility in the middle of the season. But I think if the Sens record continues to tank, it's gonna be that cap is gonna be less of a concern because at that point, I think larger trades, maybe involving top 40 or top six
Hmm.
forwards, are probably going to become on the table again, like a potential shakeup. Like before the last couple of wins against Calgary and San Jose, we were talking about should the Sens trade a core player, and we're kind of like, yeah, we're getting close to that point where it feels like if they keep losing, it's a possibility, and I wouldn't like be mad about it if it happened. A couple of wins, you get a little more optimism. It's like, okay, maybe we're gonna turn this around, but it's tough. It's tough to you can't expect it at this point. We
No,
we can't ever expect anything. We just expect losses, pretty much.
pretty much, yeah. And here's the thing, like we're playing tomorrow against Anaheim. If you have 2 out of 3 wins on the road on this road trip, I'm happy with it. I
Yeah,
am.
that would be good overall.
It's just it comes down to where you have put yourself in this position.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just been so many years of losing, and it's like I don't want to be talking about the grand scheme of things, like about moves, about who we should be trading and stuff, because that's off-season talk.
Yeah.
And I like with you and all the other game over hosts, like I want to be talking about like the details of this game and like how little tidbits where I think like the Sens could like reach the next level. Like let's say they had were what 24 games, 23 games in the season, I think. Like let's say they had a record of like 14-9 or something, right? Like
That
it's a
would be
good record.
great. That would be
It
so
would be
good, wouldn't
great.
it?
It would be great, and we would be in the conversation of just like the winning teams at the NHL. But then they can't seem to like get that back. And that's why, because over the years, October has been interesting because they started off decent, and then November, and then it's over basically. So then you're talking about who are you trading? How can we fix this? That sort of thing. And it gets sad. And I like, I don't want to be so negative about it. It's just these conversations need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about me venting sort of on Game Over here, but it's also probably what everyone else in the chat wants to hear as well. Because we can't sit here and be like, yeah, like it will turn around, you know? It's just it's been so long.
Yeah, it's tough to keep much optimism at this point. Like you said, if they do beat Anaheim tomorrow, that will be 3 wins in the last 4 games, and hey, like
Cool.
that's a really good pace if you can keep that up. But we know that they don't do this consistently, and again, with the 5 game losing streak, they can't do that again. If they have any more 3, 4 game losing streaks, they're cooked. So like
No.
pretty much from here on out, you need to at least be winning 2 out of every 3, or at least getting
Yeah.
some overtime points sprinkled in here or there. So that's the thing, and we just haven't seen this team be able to do that for long stretches of time at all over the past 4 years. So like, yeah, it's tough. It's tough to be optimistic heading forward.
They need to lock in and or just get hot in a
Mm-hmm.
way. You see it with teams like they get hot to start the year, or like Nashville last year, they went on like a 20 game point streak or something like
Yeah,
that.
we need something like that.
Yeah, we need it and we deserve it. We deserve it so bad. But you just I for any fans that are out there listening, don't expect it. Like don't get your hopes up. Because it's up to the players to do it. Like we can only do so much. We can go to the games and cheer for them and stuff, but I don't think we should set our expectations high. And it sucks to say that because I don't want to be like down on the team for a team that I love.
Mm-hmm.
But when you cave yourself in for so many years like this, you kind of have to like bring a different mentality as a fan.
I agree, and I think that's where we'll leave it for tonight. You will be back on the air tomorrow, actually, with a guest, eh?
Yes, Alex Adams. Um, he was he was scheduled to come today, but he is in the big leagues now. So there's certain certain responsibilities he has. So he's obviously a writer for Sportsnet. He'll be joining tomorrow at well, it will be around. I think it's an 8 p.m. start
Yeah, 8 p.m.
Eastern,
start,
right?
so a little bit of a later show tomorrow.
Yeah,
Not for
yeah.
you, though.
Not for me. No, I'm good. But yeah, he will be joining us unless anything pops up. But yeah.
Yeah, can't wait for that. Hopefully, a Sens win tomorrow. Hopefully, you can be a little more positive on the show tomorrow. But as we said, it's hard to have much expectations at this point. But that'll do it for tonight. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching or listening. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you are not already subscribed. Share this around if you enjoy our coverage. That'll do it for tonight. Have a good one.